Hello everyone and welcome to the Lucid Grind, a series of conversations exploring how digital entertainment can enrich, educate and challenge us in ways that transcend the genesis of the medium as simple entertainment or escapism, in ways that might even inspire us as consumers and creators alike. Today we're talking about sexual and gender identity and the role that online communities play for LGBTIQ people at various stages of self-discovery and self-affirmation. We're sitting down with veteran podcaster and streamer of Limit Break Radio and Final Encounter Cast, and a true champion of LGBT advocacy and LGBT gaming culture, Eskalia, Ryumasa. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Ethys. I need someone to introduce me like that in every room I go in. That is, I'm gonna go back, look up the episode, and write that down. I'm gonna hire a herald.
What, and Nero doesn't give you that one, does he?
Well, I'm sure he would introduce me, but not with nice words.
No, yeah, but I mean that's kind of the nature of the show. You're the punching bag in a lot of ways.
Yes, in a lot of ways, in all of the ways.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Well, I feel like everyone gets a little bit of punching in that show. It's good fun.
Absolutely.
But yeah. No,
but me in particular.
Dude, I feel the same way on State of the Realm. Like, I never get a fucking proper intro. It's appalling. We deserve some respect.
Yeah, punching bags need love too.
Yeah, punching bags need love too. There you go, everyone. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions that might seem a little bit ignorant to some of our listeners, just to make sure that everyone listening at home is on the same page with us. But we should also make it perfectly clear that Carly doesn't necessarily represent the opinions and ideas of all bi-gendered or LGBT people. I feel like that should go without saying, but at the same time, sometimes you need to say it, right?
Always good to clarify that. And yes, absolutely. I can give you my insights and perspectives, but I do not speak for everyone.
All right, good, excellent. Now, as I understand it, you identify and are identified as bi-gendered, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what is it that distinguishes bi-gendered from, say, transgendered or gender fluid?
Okay. I mean, there's so many different terms that have all kind of popped up over the past 10, 15 years that a lot of people, including people like me who went through it, don't really know what they all mean. In fact, I was identifying myself for 3 years. So
really,
yeah.
How are you identifying yourself?
I called myself gender fluid for a long time. And in a lot of ways, some of the terms are very similar, and I'm sure there's going to be people, even for me, after I get off the air, where they're like, "You completely botched this." But for the sake of trying to put it into layman's terms, there's a joke that my therapist told me when she was trying to explain all this to me, where she's like, "Okay, so a gym teacher walks into class and says boys on one side and girls on the other side. So all the cisgendered boys and girls go to their side, and then you've got your transgendered people who go to one side and then realize, wait, I shouldn't be here, and go over to the other side. You've got your gender fluid people, your bi-gendered people who basically just start running wind sprints back and forth. They bounce back and forth on some sort of regular interval. And then you've got your gender fluid people who just run in a circle screaming. Right. And that's kind of gender fluid is very. It's just that it's fluid. Yet at no real time would you probably identify as one or the other. You're just you're both. And you're bi-gendered. You very much do have a gender, but it changes.
Okay. You see, I was more under the impression, right, that gender fluid means you've got a male and female homunculi, and one enters the room and another exits, you know what I mean? Whereas bi-gendered, you've kind of got both sort of sitting in unison.
Yeah, in my experience as being bi-gender, I definitely do have both, but I will have days where I wake up and I will be very masculine, and generally it lasts 2 or 3 months is about how often I switch off. Whereas a gender fluid person, I've known gender fluid people who they use very vague pronouns because it changes so often, whereas I'm comfortable taking a male or female or a masculine or feminine pronoun because it's probably going to be good at least for a few months.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, now, and like I say, that's my experience. That's how I understand it. What I've seen from therapy groups and group sessions and stuff like that. So.
Well, the labels only get you so far. I mean, sexuality and gender identity is such a spectrum. We're inventing more and more boxes, and in some ways it's sort of complicating the issue rather than just, people are people, right?
Absolutely, and I say it a lot that I really feel bad for cisgendered people in like our online society today, because if you are
Really?
cisgendered and it's hard, if you're cisgendered, it's really hard to comprehend not being cisgendered. It's
Yeah,
really
that's true. I
difficult.
definitely agree with that.
Like you can kind of like, you can sit there and say like, okay, yeah, I kind of get it, but unless you experience it, you don't. And so when someone tells you that there are all these different pronouns or labels that they go by, it's hard to really put yourself into that mindset.
Yeah.
So when I know trans individuals who will be upset by someone asking for their pronouns or asking, how do they prefer to be called. And I'm just like, you have to have patience, because a cisgender person who's reaching out and trying to understand, that's a win for
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly.
So you need,
Exactly.
so a message to my fellow LGBT people out there: have the patience, be willing to sit and explain it, even if they have to, even if people sound ignorant. Like I doubt it's out of hatred towards you; it's just out of trying to understand.
Yeah, of course. Now, speaking of ignorance, so being bigendered, of course, it has no necessary bearing on your sexual preferences. So, for
Yes,
example, being bigendered, it doesn't necessarily follow that you're bisexual.
right. I am, but it doesn't
Right.
really have as much to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be trans and be attracted to either sex. You can be bisexual, be attracted to either sex, or bigendered, attracted to either sex. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just gender is who you are, sexuality is who you love.
Yeah. So, a question for you: Why do you think that is people of a non-cis gender tend to more or less categorically identify with people of a non-cis sexual preference under this umbrella concept of LGBT?
I think it comes from a point of comfort. Like my
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, I am 99% certain is bisexual. And for me, I would have a hard time dating someone who is just straight, because I'm gonna have 3 month periods where I'm not going to identify as a guy and not
Yeah.
be identifying as what you're attracted to. I feel like that would be very complicated in a relationship, and I have gone through that in a relationship. It is hard.
Right.
Um,
Having
so
someone not into you for 3 months at a
and,
time would be kind of shitty.
and like the real good ones they'll fake it, or they'll try their best to accept both sides of you, but you
Sure.
can tell when they're putting on the act for
Of
you, and
course. Of
you
course.
don't want that in a relationship. You want a relationship to click, to just fit. So when you meet someone who's bisexual and you say, okay, well, I know that you will genuinely be attracted to me no matter how I'm feeling, that is
Mm-hmm.
much more comfortable.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense you put it that way.
Hmm.
So, growing up, were you always in touch with your male and female self, or do you think that there were, I guess, parts of the social framework around you that made expressing your entire self difficult or even impossible?
Being bigendered was very um, strange and difficult growing up. I talk to people who are trans who say that like as early as 4 or 5 years old, they knew that they
Mm-hmm.
were trans. They knew that they were the wrong gender or the wrong sex. And for me, I would have periods of time where I felt like that, but then long
Sure.
periods of time where I felt completely fine and normal. And so for me, that just got very confusing. It wasn't like I was into my late teens before I even gave thought to the fact that I might be trans or an alternative gender. Like
Hmm.
that just thought never occurred to me. And what it manifested as is just depression. I would have periods of time where I hated the way I looked, I hated the way I sounded, I hated everything about myself. Nothing seemed right, and I couldn't recognize myself, and I could never quite put my finger on what that was. Um,
Hmm.
so in that aspect, being bigendered was very difficult growing up. Uh, I've come to learn that there are advantages to it also. There's a degree of, I think, easiness in being
Right.
bigendered as opposed to trans. I don't like transitioning is a wonderful thing that we are able to offer for trans people, but make no
Sure.
mistake, it wreaks havoc on your body.
Oh, yeah, no
It's
doubt.
it's
No
it's
doubt.
it's years of torture on yourself to get there, and I have all the respect in the world for the people who are able to do so. But like that's where like me being bigender, I'm never going to go through that, and I kind of feel
Hmm.
like I get off easy almost.
Do you think that have you ever been like titillated by the idea of being able to go through that, being able to go through like a physical change with your uh, mental change every couple of months?
Yeah, sure. Every few months or so, I go through that thought. I think I I wish I could not have to do an hour's worth of makeup to be able to pass as feminine. That'd be great.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it is something where when I first started coming out, I actually wanted to go through that, and
Hmm.
my therapist was so staunchly against it, I couldn't figure out why. Uh, but she said she's like, you're gonna come out of this phase and you're gonna go back into
Yeah, you got to wait
being
it out.
masculine, and you're gonna hate it. And especially if you start transitioning, you're just gonna get caught in that middle point because you're not gonna go stay feminine long enough to complete it.
Right,
So
of course.
her recommendation was to stay as I was, and the more time I thought about it, and especially once I actually did switch back to masculine for a while, I was like, oh yeah, dodged a bullet on that one. So
You just look down one day and you're like, man, I'm so glad I still have my penis.
yeah, kind of, kind
I
of,
was,
yeah.
I nearly got you. I nearly got
I
you.
nearly did something like, and like I would never have gotten that far, but I'd have been 3 months onto hormones, and I did
Yeah,
start
yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah.
hormones for a period of time.
Yeah.
Actually, I started doing testosterone blockers
Mm-hmm.
because I figured maybe I can get a little bit closer to the middle ground,
Sure.
if nothing else. And they wreaked like I said, they wreaked havoc on me. I was so emotional. I was making bad decisions. I actually made a decision that almost got me kicked off Limit Break Radio. Um,
Whoa. Are we
yeah.
allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, I think we can probably talk about it at this point. I was in such a state of chaos that it was just it's like being depressed where
Mm-hmm.
you're making rash decisions without thinking them through, and just like at the snap of a finger you make the decision you're going to go for it. I decided I wanted to start my own Twitch streaming channel because I wanted to see if I could make it without Limit Break Radio. Was
Right.
my ability to entertain solely dependent on me being a host on Limit Break Radio, or
Mm-hmm.
was it something that I could do on my own if I needed to? And I just made this rash decision to start my own Twitch channel, and like I didn't give them a heads up on that or anything, and
Mm-hmm.
just like me and Aniro, we had to have it out over that, and like I immediately realized like I'm like, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Maybe I'm making a really rash decision while I'm hopped up on hormones.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I eventually apologized. We kind of and we end up turning that into Final Encounter Cast Twitch stream. That's what that ended up being. But yeah, no, that was
That's the genesis of Final Encounter Cast Twitch.
of that. Well, that's what we used as our opportunity to launch the Twitch channel, was me saying I was going to start my own thing, and we did this bit where they yelled, where they were all kind of just cursing me out and
Right.
stuff like that. And
So
then I realized
classic and Nero decides he's gonna turn it into a bit.
it's all. That's like anytime. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
a really
That's
good way to
the thing.
deal with drama, I think.
It kind of is like, and it's like we'll have an argument or something, and we'll get it
Yeah,
resolved,
because it's
and
like
like
role playing, right?
right. Well, we always resolve it like first, but then we're like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, now how can we make use of that?
How can we sell out
How
on
can we
this?
make use of that? So I mean, that was something that was that's a little behind the looking glass. I don't think we've ever actually talked about that in the show, but yeah, that did happen. That was while I was on hormones, and I stopped taking them shortly after that. Where it was just like, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm not
Yeah.
going through this. So
Oh, that's interesting. So when you were growing up, did you personally know anyone amongst your family or maybe some older friends that you could identify with and would help you understand yourself better?
uh not really. My
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I still live in the same city I grew up in, a small little suburb of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, growing up, uh, I very much had regular friends for any boy. I had a group of friends. We went and played hockey in the streets, in our bike ride, skate, rollerblade, stuff like that. Um, and a lot of my escapism from my feminine self, I think, as a kid, came from video games. I I did not. I would have long periods of time where I would like playing Power Rangers or like playing, hockey or whatever it would be, and then I'd have periods of time
Right.
where I didn't even want to go outside. And I think that was very early on my bigendered self kind of thing. I need something else that I can do that
Hmm.
isn't that, and that video games very early on became kind of my escape for that.
So role playing kind of gives you a conduit to express yourself in that stage.
Yeah, and like role playing is the right word for it, because even as I started getting a little older into my early teens, or 11 to 13 years, I found a website called Gaia Online, which
Right. Oh, I know Gaia Online.
everyone's like, oh, was it that one weird website where you could make an avatar and like have sex on forums? It's kind of what everyone remembers. But I discovered that website when I was, I think, 12, and I met a
Hmm.
girl that I would go on to date for 5 years, and she's still one of my best friends to this day on there. But that was one of my earliest escapes into having somewhere where I didn't have to just be myself, the myself that the world saw all the time.
Hmm. So, when did you first personally meet an openly bi-gendered person, and what was that experience for you like at the time?
Oh, wow. My first time meeting someone like that would have been, geez, just a couple of years ago, actually.
Really?
Yeah, like I say, this wasn't something that I even began to consider about myself until I was about 17 or 18. I can,
Sure.
I thought that I was a transvestite because I did have an interest in girls' clothes throughout my teen
Right.
years, but I thought I was just a transvestite. I started seeing a therapist when I was 18 over it because it was getting harder to hide. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
it's starting to encroach on other parts of my life. I need to see a therapist and see what's going on with me. And he told me that it was all a phase and that it would all blow over and it would pass.
Of course.
He should have his license taken away because it did not blow over and it did not pass. And I started getting very depressed over it. Uh,
Mm.
but I for about 4 more years, I would go on just kind of a cycle of binging and purging. I would buy all my feminine wardrobe, stock it up, stock it up, stock it up, and then I would have a utter meltdown, call myself a freak like 1,000 times, and throw it all away, and that got very expensive. Um, but that was
That's the real problem, right? The
well,
money.
like it was a problem. I didn't
Uh,
like spending money on clothes and then throwing them away all the time, but for
hmm.
about 5 years that's what I was doing. And what was the problem was those meltdowns where I would then kind of get rid of it all were getting worse and worse and worse until one of my friends just said, you have got to see a
Right.
therapist again. Like I know
Right.
it didn't go well the first time, but you have to. I'll go if you do because she was also dealing with some depression, and so we both made an agreement to, and that was a very life-changing day for me because I met a much better therapist this time around who helped me with myself and just immediately, like as she started discovering I had this feminine self to me, she pointed out like you're that my personality just changes immediately. I smile more. I
Hmm.
get very animated and giggly and silly and stuff like that. So uh, it kind of became clear very quickly that like I had been dancing around the issue the whole time.
Seems fascinating to me how common it seems to be that like the first therapist people see is really shitty and like really turns them off the idea of therapy and makes them feel really jaded about it and
It's
really reticent to sort of pursue further specialists. I mean, I've had the same experience. I know so many people who have. It's just yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
it's amazing. I almost feel like they find out it's your first time seeing a therapist and like, oh,
Yeah.
we gotta screw them over. I don't know what purpose that would serve, but the amount of times that I hear like my first therapist was terrible, my second one was wonderful,
Yeah.
it's just like and I don't know, maybe it was because I just saw like a general therapist the first time around, and then the second time around
Right.
I suck out an LGBT therapist.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the big difference maker, but just
Yeah,
right.
maybe.
Every time I talk to someone about that, they're like, "Oh God, my therapist is terrible." I'm like, "See another one. I promise." There's not like a guidebook that they all follow and they're all going to be the same. They're all different.
That's amazing. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about video games. I feel like gaming as a medium has been reasonably but not entirely progressive for a reasonable amount of time. Were there any video game characters that have really spoken to you, either growing up or more recently?
Uh, yeah. I mean, like characters in general really speak. I think not just to me, but to everybody. Like,
Sure.
for example, meet any trans person and ask them who their favorite Disney princess is, because like
Right.
95% of them are going to say Mulan.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like anytime I hear her song, when will my reflection show who I am?
Yeah,
Like that speaks to me on such a deep level, and most people like me on such a deep level. Like characters do have a great way of speaking to us.
of
Um,
course.
And I mean, growing up, I had a duality with that because I had my characters that I loved so much
Hmm.
when I was feeling masculine, and my characters that I loved so much when I was feeling feminine. So, like, if I was feeling very masculine, it was always Squall. Growing up,
Hmm.
I loved his character. He was kind of had that brooding lone wolf thing, but he's a badass, and he gets a cool gun sword. How hype is that? And he eventually meets Renoa, and that's such a beautiful story to me.
Yeah.
Uh, my feminine self, not as much with finding like good characters that I identify with. My feminine self was always characters that I created that kind of made that happen for me. Like my character in FF11 always had such a deep meaning to me.
Right.
I always made up excuses for why I picked a Mithra, but I mean, at the heart of it, it was my chance to be seen as feminine, even if I was.
Sure.
So, I feel like the character for my feminine side, it was always the characters I made that always spoke to me deeper. Except
That's
for
interesting.
Garnet in FF9, she was awesome. I loved her.
Yeah, Garnet's pretty great.
Yeah.
So you don't think there are any characters that would sort of persistently speak to you through both your male and female phases?
Um, Man, not as much in video games. I think I feel like
Hmm.
my characters that I always would identify with the most would be like in anime and things like that. Uh,
Okay.
just I always liked there's a series called Initial D, which is
Yeah,
about
yeah, I'm familiar with it.
okay, street racing. Takumi to me always spoke to me because he's such like this quiet character that the world kind of thrusts these expectations on, and he doesn't really understand them, and that
Sure.
spoke to me on maybe a lesser level. Like he kind of sees street racing like he barely knew it existed, and then suddenly he's thrown right into the heart of it, and I really identify with that kind of just being like, oh, this is a thing, and now I'm living it. Um, so I always identify with that, whether or not I'm feeling masculine or feminine.
But you find that Final Fantasy XI in particular sort of affords you these opportunities to kind of be creative and create anything, and your character is your own. There's no restrictions.
Yeah, well, you look at someone, yeah, like your FF11 character, and you can create a backstory for them if you want to, or you
Of
can
course.
choose not to. But no matter what, I always have ways that I would talk when I would be playing as her, or I would, I always called myself the sneaky Mithra. I
Hmm.
had no idea why, but I loved just
The
sneaking through
sneaky
areas,
Mithra.
just going through areas without using sneaker invisible, and just being able to get through without catching aggro. I don't know why I liked being able to do that, but it was a skill that I picked up early on because in the olden days, uh, everything was dangerous in FF11, and you
Yeah,
would die.
that's a pretty mean feat.
Yeah, like
That's pretty ballsy.
if you get caught in FF11, you die. There's
Yeah,
no,
you're fucked.
yeah, that you don't get away. They don't de-aggro. You just die. So that was something I always liked from that game, and that really continued on into FF14. And I don't have nearly the same relationship with 14 that I do 11. Uh,
Sure.
11 touched me on a much deeper level, but my character in 14 very much so.
Hmm.
I put a lot more thought into who she was, and actually, I have an alt in 14 named Callie Page, who I really didn't tell anyone about when I made her, and I made her on a different server. I don't like when I play as her. I don't tell people who it is
Ah,
or that I'm on it. It's just my chance. Like she is my escape. She's there to be me when I don't want to be in the public eye, and I just want to
sure.
feel feminine and be on her. Like that's what I do.
Do people recognize Callie Page?
They do now. They didn't
Yeah.
back when I first made her.
I was about
But
to say they surely would now.
they do now. Yeah, like nowadays, like I'll have people be like, "Are you? Is this your alt?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is my
Ah,
alt. You
shit.
got me." Like when I first made her, what was funny to me when I first made her is I looked at my two characters one day when I just had them both up, and I'm like, "Wow,
Hmm.
I put so much more work into Callie's appearance. It is not even funny."
Hmm.
And now I've actually changed Eskalia's appearance to reflect Callie's. But like when I
Sure.
first made her, yeah, I probably put 7 hours of work into crafting
Wow.
how I wanted her. So yeah, and like that's like anything. Like if she's gonna be my avatar for my feminine self, I might as well put the work in.
I think that's really interesting. I was talking about escapism the
Hmm.
other week with Mike, and the fact that he doesn't really seem to think that he ever gets like fully removed from his own environment, and escapism can be a bit of a problem in terms of dealing with like real life situations. But it
Sure.
seems to me that escapism for you has been a catalyst for coming to terms with and sort of managing your real life, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, and he's right. I think escapism, when you're using it as a way to not deal with your problems in the real world, like if you're, you be it grades or work or financial situation, whatever it might be, I think, yeah, that is a problem. For me, it's always been, no matter, like, I'm good at my makeup now, but no matter how good I am, I'm never going to pass as a ridiculously attractive woman. Like, that's just not going to happen. Uh,
Hmm.
but
Well, I mean, that's your opinion, right?
Well, my girlfriend would probably smack me and say otherwise, but
Hey man, I've seen you in Cali, like in the
yeah,
full get up. It's I don't know.
when
It's
I,
titillating, I'll give you that.
when I put the work into it, yeah,
Yeah.
like, as I said, there was a time when, like, I couldn't even pass. Like, my first time going out in public, I don't care what my friend said, I was not even close to passing. But
Are you at the point now where you can kind of concede that you do clean up pretty good?
yes, I've gotten to the point where I can, like, if I do the full work and spend all the time and whatnot, I'm like, all right.
Hmm.
Like, if you don't stare real close or notice my Adam's apple, I probably can
Hmm.
pass at this point. I'll be a
All
very
right.
flat-chested, but somewhat attractive girl.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot of people are into that.
but Eskalia, yeah, has always posed a different kind of escapism for me, where
Sure.
Eskalia, I can be this character, and people will look at her and immediately think feminine as opposed to thinking masculine.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's no confusion
There's no
whatsoever.
exactly, and I mean, with Mithra and FF11, most people thought masculine anyway because
Sure.
Manther was a joke for a reason.
Yeah.
But I think that problem is definitely lesser in 14 because there is the option to play a male Mikote and there's more race
Yeah.
in general to pick from. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah, no, it's always been my ability to escape and live my feminine persona, even if just for a little bit.
So, what was the first online LGBT community that you were involved with? You mentioned Gaia Online. Was there anything before that? I mean, obviously, that's not exclusively an LGBT community, but it
Sure.
had a quite a
Uh,
presence.
It did have quite a presence, but I was not very active with it. Like,
Hmm.
at the time that I was doing Guy, I was probably when I was like 11 to 16-ish. It was probably that era.
Hmm.
And at that time, I didn't really consider myself LGBT. I just thought I was a transvestite. Um,
Right.
so at that time, I was not very active in the LGBT community. 14 has been my first time really getting involved with the LGBT community in any way that I can,
Okay.
which has been an incredibly rewarding experience. And I wish I had started doing it at a much younger age. But 14 has been my first real opportunity to do that.
So, what compelled you to get involved with LGBT communities in Final Fantasy 14?
Um, well, after I came out, um,
Hmm.
my first person that I came out to was my therapist, and after
Okay.
that, my best friend and roommate at the time. I actually texted it to him. I was at work one night, and I texted him like this 7 text message long bomb, just saying like, "Listen, this is me. I'm starting to come out to people. This is who I am. I hope it's okay. If you have questions, I'll answer them." And like his reply was something to the fact like, "That's cool. What's for dinner?"
That's awesome. That's fucking awesome.
That was pretty much his response. Like, it was a
That's
little more weird than
perfect.
that, but he was like, "That's cool," and like so that was great. Then I told my other roommate, and then after that, I didn't tell anyone for a while because I was like, "All right, cool. Now I can dress feminine at my house, and I don't have to worry about
Hmm.
that." But from there, I started telling my brother, my cousin, other people who were really important to me. Um, but I knew that eventually the big one was going to be coming out to the public and online,
Sure.
and that was maybe the coolest night of my life. Was that night where I tweeted out early in the day that there was going to be a special guest on my stream for that night. I was streaming pretty much every night at that point, and I was going to have a special
Hmm.
guest that evening. And I started up the stream, and I played my music, and I was fully dressed and ready to go. And I forgot to turn I quote unquote forgot to turn my camera on, and I just started the show like normal until people started bothering me about it and saying, "Hey, why isn't your camera on? Where's your guest?" I'm like, "Oh, that's right, of course. I'm sorry. I do. My guest has just arrived. They're here. I want to introduce them. You don't know this because she's always in the background, but she has actually been present for almost every stream I've ever done, every podcast I've ever done. I could not do any of this without her." And then I clicked on the camera and introduced myself.
That's
And
such an awesome reveal.
it,
You really have a flair for the dramatic, you
I
know.
can't help it. Like, if I can do something with a little bit of extra drama to it, I have to.
Oh,
Um,
that's amazing.
but we did the reveal, and everyone, like people who don't usually listen to my stream, like my best friend Aaron was there,
Hmm.
my friend Chase was there, my cousin was there, my brother was there, like everyone important to me showed up in the stream that night to be there for that, and everyone was super supportive and cool with it. It was just a touching moment, and that was great, and I rode that high for a while. But about 3 months after I had started coming out to people, I hit just the worst depression. Just
Really?
I had this like it was basically my first time where I was switching back into feeling masculine again after I'd come out.
Right.
And
Okay.
I had this feeling like I didn't have any right to go back to my masculine self, like I had just spat in the face of my masculine self and like had just abandoned this gender that had like frankly served me well for all my
Right.
life. Even if I had gone through like being bigendered, my masculine self had still served me well. Uh,
Hmm.
and I just felt so angry at myself, like I had betrayed who I was, and I just went into the worst depression for a couple months, and I had some of the darkest moments and thoughts of my life. I'm glad to say nothing bad came of it, but I will never forget what those thoughts were like, and I started talking to my therapist about it, and what was hard to wrap my head around was that as bad as that was, and as difficult as growing up bigendered was and not understanding it and not being able to get my head around those things, I had it so fucking good. I am in the top 5 percentile for how good.
Does that help you? Does that, because I that can go one of two ways, right? When you're told, you know, you've got it pretty fucking easy, like you might be struggling, you might have depression or whatever, but your life's pretty fucking sweet. I mean, that can be reassuring in a way, but it can also kind of, you know, bum you out.
Well, God bless my therapist because she didn't really tell me that. She let me get to that conclusion.
Right.
I
Okay.
came to that conclusion that, like, you know what, at the end of the day, all of my friends, except for maybe one or two who weren't that great of friends anyway, were supportive.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were both supportive. They don't quite get it or understand, but they're on my side.
Sure.
So, I wasn't kicked out of my house. I didn't lose my job. Like,
Sure.
I've had it really good, top 5 percentile, I would guess, in
Yeah.
terms of people coming out like this. And so that's just kind of what said, you know what, if I can give anything back under any circumstance, I'm going to. Because
Okay.
like I don't know what I did to get to deserve to have it that easy, but other people should have help too. So
Mm. Well, we're going to come back to giving back
okay.
very soon. So when you did come out and when you did start to get involved with communities in Final Fantasy 14, did you have any preconceptions about what that might have been like, and did any of them prove true?
As in regards to meeting like LGBT individuals
Yeah.
or you know, it was something like it was hard to describe how I felt. Like I felt like I would be stepping into a larger world, which I did, and
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I would be the one who's like struggling to catch up. But what I've kind of noticed is a lot of the times the people that I meet and talk to who are like me or are trans or something like of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
they're they're where I was 2 years ago.
Right.
They're at the beginning of their discovery of it. And like I there was a guy that I talked to probably about 6 months ago. It's just a conversation I'll never forget. He messaged me. I was sitting in the Gold Saucer doing my MGP stuff for the day, and he messaged me and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to say real quick, you know, thank you for the charity work that you've done, and you know, you're an inspiration, and I just want to say thank you." And we ended up talking for like we must have talked for an hour and a half or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and just this is someone who is they're not out of the closet yet, but they want to be, and they're going through the same things that I went through. They're just
Mm-hmm.
doing it's interesting to see them doing now. They're coming to those same conclusions about themselves that I eventually came to for me, and it was just amazing to see like this person going through the same thing. And part of me wanted to like hold his hand and tell him everything that was going to happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen for him. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just he's got to discover everything for himself like I did for me, and just it I'm finding out that I'm further along with this than I would have thought I am. I would have
So you
thought.
obviously never expected that you would end up being a role model for other people once you came out. You thought that you'd find role models of your own.
Yes, I thought I was going to find people to help me get through this.
Right.
Like, and I have.
Well,
Like,
you shit out of luck.
yeah, no, and I just not to say that I haven't. I have
Mm-hmm.
absolutely have. I've met people who have gone through like their full transition.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually gone the whole way, and like talking to them and then hearing their stories of how they discovered it. Like I almost like it's kind of like that first time going to the therapist. Everyone's got kind of the same story at the
Sure.
beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
Um,
course.
but yeah, it definitely has been weird to be called a role model. That was a moment that I did not expect to ever experience. So
Do you
that
think that you've come to terms with it now?
no,
No, it
I
still doesn't sit well with you.
like because I look around and by lots of objective measures, like I'm living with my parents, I don't have a degree, I'm working part time and trying to make it as an entertainer. I'm the quintessential starving artist. It's like by a lot of objective measures, I should be no one's role model. For that, I guess I can see like if you're someone who wants to be, you know, who is bigendered or trans and it doesn't want to be in the closet anymore, I can see where you would
Hmm.
want to be doing what I'm doing. So
Hmm.
for that I get it, but it's very weird to be called a role model.
Right. Okay. Well, so back in I think it was mid 2014, Final Fantasy 14 director and producer Naoki Yoshida announced live at E3 that the ceremony of eternal bonding, Final Fantasy 14's simulated marriage system, would be effectively LGBT friendly. Now,
Yep.
this caused a really big splash in the beginning. Most of us remember that the rough trade gaming community, ostensibly the world's largest LGBT guild, or at least so they claim on their website. They responded with a Pixel Pride parade on Gilgamesh server. It made news headlines all around the place, but it seemed to me, even before then, that Final Fantasy XIV hosts one of the most active and healthy LGBT cultures of any online community. So why do you think that Aorzia is so gay?
Why do I? Wow, that sounds like something we get yelled at for on our show. Um, well, I think the LGBT community is one that actively seeks out its own and sticks together, like
Hmm.
very strongly. Um, and don't get me wrong, there are issues that LGBT people have with each other. There are I haven't seen tons of examples of it, but I've heard of people who are gay or straight having people problems with people who are bisexual and just saying
Sure.
like and the same way like I've had instances in my life of people who are trans having a problem with me saying I'm bigendered.
Hmm.
Um, so it does exist, but for the most part, like that's such a small minority. For the most part, the LGBT community is one that stands very strongly together, and I think 14 allowing gay marriage is first of all awesome on their part because man, we barked up that tree for years in 11.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
I can't like that was one part that playing a Mithra was tough. Like man, I gotta meet a girl who also plays a guy. That's gonna be tough. So but yeah, 14 allowing gay marriage is really strong, and it's kind of like I say, I feel like once there is an LGBT community somewhere, that attracts more. So if 14 gets that reputation of being LGBT friendly, it will attract LGBT people.
So you think that that really did have a sort of significant boost on the numbers, just that one feature alone?
I think I don't know if that feature alone, but I would say probably the press that it generated did.
Right. Okay. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I understand. I mean, to be honest, it was a pretty good marketing ploy, if you want
Oh,
to be
it was.
cynical about
Well, I mean,
it.
at the time that it came too, where like I mean, gay marriage up until I mean, it's still a big conversation point in America,
Yeah,
but I
but
mean,
it was like on everyone's
it
lips
was
at that time.
right. It was going through the process of the Supreme Court was going to be hearing that case in
Hmm.
America, and we were so
Hmm.
like it was a big talking point, and it was good timing for 14 to go ahead and make that happen. So.
Do you think that there's anything unique about Eorzea or about that world which is attractive to LGBT people?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I think the style. of
Hmm.
the art style of the game, I think lends itself to the game being more aesthetically driven, as
Sure.
opposed to a game like say Eve, which is not particularly like Eve is spreadsheets. Like that's they call it
Yeah.
spreadsheets in space for a reason. You have
Yeah. Yeah. For
Warcraft
sure.
where the graphics are dated at this point. You have games like Tor, which is like they called it the Tortanic for a reason. It went down like a rock. Um, so I think 14 lends itself, like the art style of the game lends itself to the LGBT community and to an aesthetically driven community. And I think also the active roleplay area population in the game lends itself to the
Yeah.
LGBT community because
Okay.
I don't know of any game that's got more like of a role play scene right now than 14 other than like some games that are specifically designed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. All right. So we talk a lot on this show about reasons people play the games that they do. People play for escapism, for social interactions that might otherwise be difficult or unfulfilling, for the thrill and challenge of overcoming difficult content. Do you think that there's anything about gaming in general that is a unique or particularly important and fruitful experience to you personally?
Yeah, I think when I play a game, I want it to speak to me, and on some level, it
Hmm.
needs to leave a lasting impact on me. For 11, that impact was twofold. It was the friends that I made, and because
Hmm.
to this day I'm still in touch with a lot of my 11 friends. That's I mean that's where I met Limit Break Radio. It's had a very big impact on my life. Um, and it was also it was the story behind 11 and everything. Like it was not my story in 11, but it was the story of my character. Everything that went into getting that character to level 75,
Yeah.
everything that went into getting that character geared up. It was facing the trials of no one wanting Dragoon for anything ever. It was like that game beat me down and it just I kept rising back up to like say no, screw you, I'm playing this job. Um so
So you were
I
playing Dragoon for the challenge.
Yeah, like Dragoon was hard enough to play without like the additional challenges of everyone hating you. Uh, like and so like but like I look at the moments like when Dragoon got its 2 hour reworked, when it was finally taken
Hmm.
off Call Wyvern and they gave a Spirit Surge, that I jumped out of my chair and started jumping up and down with excitement just when those patch notes came out because I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna be viable, kind of. But like so there's just like all those stories, like I remember them so fondly, and that's like how that game spoke to me. 14 speaks to me in a very different way. Again, 14 speaks to me with its actual story.
Hmm.
With That's the thing about the game that I enjoy the most. I'm not at a point in my life where I care for doing rating anymore. Like,
Sure.
you know, I had that point in my life where I was willing to sit down and dedicate tons of time to that, and I'm not there anymore. If I want to do, you know, sit down and grind something, I'll play League and smash my face in the keyboard for a little while. Um,
Yeah.
so 14 speaks to me in a very different way, but that also makes 14 a little bit. It's harder to like continuously grind at that game because once the story's done, I feel like, I gotta wait for the next patch to get more out of the game.
Right. So you feel like you're not quite as invested in it.
I like a lot of my investment in 14 comes from Limit Break Radio and from being
Yeah,
involved in
of
that community.
course. Of
That's where so
course.
much of my investment in 14 comes from. And I
I
think
think honestly, I think that's true of most people, like even hardcore raiders and stuff like that. I feel like most people that have been invested in Final Fantasy 14 for a long period of time, it is mostly the community that they're
yeah,
involved with.
yeah, it's hard. 14 has they've adapted the WoW model to a T in a lot of places,
Yeah,
and that model I think they need to remember sometimes is now 14 years old almost.
yeah.
That's an old model, and I don't know if it's gonna. I'll be curious to see what they do with 4.0 if they keep going with that model or if they branch into something new. My gut says something new, but my longtime disagreements with SE on many things says maybe not. But yeah,
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
like I said, I need a game to speak to me in some way. Like right now,
Hmm.
I just started playing Bravely Second. I finally got around to playing it
Okay.
because I had a trip, so I had 2 long car rides to start playing it. Now like that game. The first 3 hours of that game are awful. Like
Right.
they are objectively bad. But anyone
So
out
you
there,
need to be stuck in a car to
you
actually
kind of
like get
do.
committed to
So yeah, if
it.
anyone out there has just started Bravely Second and you can't get yourself to keep going, I promise it gets better after like the third
Right.
hour.
Be
It gets like
patient with it.
yeah, like the writing style kind of goes back to the Bravely Default writing style, and it gets much better.
Okay.
Outside of how they name people, because the naming conventions are every bit as bad as they were in the first one. It's brutal. You will groan every time a character is introduced. So, but outside of that, like that game speaks to me again on a really deep uh, point from the story. I think the story in those games have always been strong, and the gameplay features are really good in that one. Have you
Okay.
played? Did you play Life is Strange?
No, no, I haven't. It's on my list.
You
I have a long list and it's near the top.
I know, like I have that same list, and like for a long time, like I had Undertale,
Yeah.
Life is Strange sitting like right up there.
Yeah, yeah.
You have got to play Life is Strange.
All right.
I
Sold.
I have never even Undertale, like I liked Undertale more as a game, but Life is Strange spoke to me from its story on the
Didn't
deep.
you stream it?
I did. I streamed the whole
Yeah.
of it, and it just spoke to me on the deepest level, like of exploring this theme of like the more control you have, the less control you actually have, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a powerful message, and it's definitely worth a playthrough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read some write-ups on it and stuff and exploring that whole idea of expressive freedom and stuff like that. It's a very philosophically driven game, and that is right up my alley, obviously.
You would
Now,
dig it.
I've heard you say before, several times in fact, that you never envisioned yourself spending so much of your life in front of a microphone, right?
No.
And yet, here we are.
Yeah.
You're. I'd say at this point, it's safe to say that you're a veteran of the podcast form. You've been streaming more and more. So, what changed?
Wow, boy, there's another weird thing to hear in addition to role model, veteran of the
Veteran.
podcast realm. Yeah, that's
Well, I mean, it's technically true.
yeah. I guess 9 years, probably.
Yeah.
What changed? I think. Well, the biggest thing was doing the guest spot on Limit Break Radio. That was
Hmm.
like the moment, like I had my first taste of having my voice out there and being heard and having someone give me some feedback and tell me what I could improve, and
So that
that
really
was
was like an epiphany for you, you
it
think?
really was like you talk to my cousin sometime if you ever get to meet Zyle Harkin. He
Sure.
the trip home, I would not shut up about it. Like
Oh, that's
I was
amazing.
immediately trying to pick out a new idea for a show, and I was listening. I like to listen to like the sports talk radio and stuff like that. And I was thinking like, man, there should be a sports talk show for FF11 where people can call. It's all about people calling in and talking, and
Hmm.
that was what Voices of Vanadil ended up being. Um, that it really was an epiphany moment. And after Voices of Vanadil went away, I kind of got out of it for probably 2 or 3 years. I didn't really do much with it.
Hmm.
And then one day we were just kind of joking about it, and we decided we would bring back. We wanted to remaster some of our old episodes and go back and redo some of our point 5 episodes that we'd done, and we kind of got
Sure.
rebit by the bug, and we started working on a new series. And eventually, the Pet Food Alpha thing happened, and then a little while after that, Nero said he was getting everyone together to do an LBR for FF14 and wanted to know if I had any thoughts about what that should look like. And here we are.
That's
I now
fantastic.
I've gotten to the point in my life where I can't fathom not performing anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've had similar experiences over the past 18 months, but nothing so dramatic that I would call it an epiphany. Nothing where I've just had a moment just completely change my direction. That's really incredible.
I
Uh,
I
and I
I
hope that
tell
speaks to some
people
people.
I tell people what I do now who haven't talked to me in a long
Hmm.
time, and they don't believe it. They flat out will not. Like if I meet someone I went to high school with, they will not believe what I do. They're like, you mean you don't like do computers?" I'm like, "Well, I do computer stuff, but I'm performing." They're like, "No, you don't. Shut up."
Nah, nah,
No,
nah, nah,
I when I
nah.
was like I wouldn't perform in our family talent show where it was all family. I wouldn't. You couldn't get me on stage to do that growing up.
Oh
Um,
man,
so
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
to end up being a performer of all things was not what I foresaw.
That's awesome, dude. Well, you've really made the most of it. In the past 12 months, right? You've held two major marathon charity streams.
Hmm.
First was Seeds of Acceptance, where you raised, I think it was $2,100 for Save the Children. Well,
Yep.
Save the Children, wasn't it?
No, it was $2,100 and 12 cents that went to Go Affirmations actually.
Oh, okay, of course, right. And more recently, you smashed through Final Fantasy IX. You're Not Alone, you called it, and you raised over 4,000 for transgender Michigan.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. That is correct. Yeah. You're Not Alone was amazing. Just like I wouldn't say smashed through it. It was 36 hours, but it was I
36 hours it's pretty good.
it was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
We had a moment early on where I was doing all the active time events and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And someone's like, if you keep doing all these active time events, you're never gonna finish. And so we just started skipping them. And thank God we did because yeah, it ended up taking 36 hours.
Jeez. So you weren't live for 36 hours, were you?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I was live for about 34 hours and 40 minutes, I would say. I had about an hour and 20 minutes on the morning of the second day, where my stomach really started having problems. I'd actually been having problems the whole night.
Jeez.
I did one of my first stretch goals was to do like a couple of hot sauce shots.
Oh
And
no.
we used a hotter
Oh
hot
no.
sauce than we
That should be one of your last stretch goals.
That is something because I did hot sauce shots on Seeds of Acceptance, but we used a
Mm-hmm.
much hotter hot sauce this time.
What hot
And
sauce did you use?
the first time around, it was like Tabasco sauce and
Yeah, yeah.
like something and like some Frank's Red Hot or something like that. This time around, we used the mango habanero sauce and
Ooh.
the blazing sauce mixed together from Buffalo Wild Wings.
Ooh, shout out.
Yep, shout out.
That sounds delicious.
Well, it was hot, that's for sure. But it really messed my stomach up doing that. Actually, overnight, every time we took a break, I had to go throw up.
You're insane.
Yeah. Well,
And you pushed through 34 hours of that.
yeah, I
You're
didn't
fucking
tell.
insane.
I couldn't tell my other hosts that were with me, the other people who were there helping me, because I knew they'd make me stop. So I
Yeah.
didn't tell them. But like that next morning, it started getting really bad, and I was just like, all right, Luke,
Oh my God.
Alita, I need you guys to take the stream for like an hour while I just go like lay down for a bit, drink a lot of milk, and kind of get myself resituated. And
Oh my
fortunately, we were at
God.
a part where we were doing Chocobo Hot and Cold, so they were able to hop on and just kind of be
Yeah,
goofs
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and play for like an hour, and then I was able to get back in and finish it out from there. I would have
Bloody
loved to
hell.
go the full 36 hours, but my stomach spoke and I had to take a quick break.
So what drew you to these causes in particular?
Well, Go Affirmations was a cause that provides so many or like resources for LGBT people. Like everything from just like getting you in touch with people that can help you with whatever your problems may be to offering like
Mm-hmm.
free counseling and stuff.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to be working with them again shortly. They are going to be training me on how to run a group therapy session, and I'm going to be running a group therapy session for gender non-binary individuals in the LB Army over
Right.
Discord.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, I'm going to try and run my own group therapy sessions. So that's
Oh, that's
something
fantastic.
I'm have in the works that's not quite ready to go yet, but I'm going to be starting
Mm-hmm.
training with Go Affirmations to
Mm-hmm.
be able to run that. And Transgender Michigan provided the first call-in hotline for anyone if you have any kinds of problems, if you need like to locate resources, and if you need someone to talk to, and they offer it to anywhere in the world. And so they've taken calls from all over the place, including a lot of countries where like you can't be transgender. That's
Sure.
not
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
So they've taken like
Okay, so it's not isolated to Michigan. They do
no,
have like an international call center.
they're based off out of Michigan, but like it's
Yeah.
not just for people who live in Michigan, and they do actually work with other transgender groups throughout the country to coordinate efforts. So,
Okay.
both were outstanding causes. And basically I knew I wanted to do LGBT causes because I know me, and I know that if it's a
Mm-hmm.
cause that affects me, I will work harder for it. Because like I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do cancer or Doctors Without Borders or something like that, but I knew that those will be causes that since they affect me, I will work harder for them.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
what you mean.
yeah.
Also,
So
I feel like it's an underrepresented cause, particularly within the Twitch community. A lot of people do things, for cancer. A lot of people do
sure.
things for like children's hospitals and stuff like that. And those are important causes. But I think it's good to have, a broader scope and a little bit of variety in the kinds of things that we're supporting in Twitch as a
That's
whll.
there's a lot of causes out there that are very worthy causes that need help.
Of
Like
course.
so like that I could do something to help those two organizations it was outstanding. I had this huge worry going into You're Not Alone that like after Seeds of Acceptance, it was just gonna kind of like fizzle out, and I would only make like I did $2,100 for Seeds.
And you thought there was no way you were going to top that.
Well, I first of all, my goal for Seeds of Acceptance was $100. Like
That's amazing.
I was talking like I was with my cousin who was my stream manager during both shows. He's been my stream manager. He basically runs the whole show while I'm performing. And he asked me before, and he's like let's I just want to make sure that your hopes aren't that you're not going to be crushed if we don't get everything. What are you thinking? And I'm like, I would love to get $100. If we get that, then you know what, it was worth my time. And if we could get like $400, like that's my shoot the moon goal. Like that would be over the top, unbridled success. And we broke $1,000 in like the first 6 hours of the stream.
That's incredible.
It was amazing. And I had this like, so I was fairly confident going into You're Not Alone, but I kind of had like this nagging worry.
Yeah. What if?
And it would just not be nearly as successful. But then we broke $2,100.12 in like the first 12 hours of that stream. So
oh my god.
Just 2 times I've had those nerves, and then they've just been completely obliterated and wiped away just by this amazing community.
That's incredible. So you've talked about you're gonna do this what did you say you were gonna do? What's next?
The support group.
Yes. Right. So that's for the LB Army. Anyone
who's kind of in the 14 community, if you're dealing with that sort of thing, I'm hopeful to just run a stream over Discord, not a stream, but just a Discord channel where people it'll be by invite only, because we obviously want to keep it private.
Of course.
We don't want anyone to be there. I've had people who I know are like cisgendered and straight and whatnot who want to like help out and be involved in it. I'm like, and I get that, but like kind of the idea is here we're creating a place where people can
of course.
So it's like I'm trying to like, how do I say like thank you, but I don't know what really you could do. But it's
I know what you mean.
Trying to create for people that we can just kind of hang out and talk, and like if you need advice, or if you just need to get something off your chest, or like I had a friend not long ago who got fired for being trans, and it's utter bullshit, and she doesn't have money to take it to court, and it's just like those problems are still out there. They exist all over the place, and just like even if it's just that person's needing, hey, has this ever happened to someone before? How did you handle it? If I create that environment, that's a win.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, we'll be talking about in a little bit how if anyone listening thinks they'd be all about that, how they might be able to get involved. So is there, do you have any other special events or charities, plans,
there's
projects?
There's an event that doesn't have a date yet. I haven't decided quite when it's going to happen, but it is going to be the 3rd charity stream.
Okay.
It is happening. I can confirm. I'm trying to work out a time when it is appropriate to do that. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but this year we have FanFest happening, which is, while an outstanding event, is a major money sink. It is. Event. Especially, I'm like, for you, you're flying in from where you're at. Like that's gonna be.
Dude.
Yeah,
it's gonna cost me like $2,000 just to fucking get there and back.
Right. So that event is happening, and I want to be very conscious of that. So normally I would be running it in August on the anniversary of Seeds of Acceptance, but that is 2 months removed from this major money sink event that I know is going to happen. So I don't want to run it then. I'm thinking it's probably going to be pushed back, and we're going to run it maybe over the holiday season. I might do it over Christmas break. Like I think that'd be a really cool time to run it.
That would be. Can you leak any more details? Do you know what game you're going to play?
I do. I think I can. Okay, yeah, I think we can give it away. It's 3 games are going to be being played for the first time.
Okay, all right.
We are going to be doing a Rare-a-thon.
A Rare-a-thon,
in which we are going to be playing 3 highly influential Rareware games.
Okay.
I can say that the first one is Banjo-Kazooie.
Yes.
And the overnight one is going to be Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Yes. Oh, that's going to be awesome.
And I believe the third one is going to be Donkey Kong 64.
Donkey Kong 64. All right. So we're all about the Nintendo 64 rare games.
It's going to be an N64 Rare-a-thon. It's going to be 3 games that we're going to play over the course of the event. We're hoping 10 to 12 hours a piece for them. And yeah, that we're very, very excited to be doing this event. We're already working on stretch goals. We're already working on plans. It's not going to be held in my house for the first time. We're going to be going a little site for this because my house cannot handle the event that we're doing. I have a friend who has graciously volunteered his house, and like he has a house all to himself that we'll be able to utilize in its entirety for this event. So yes, the 3rd charity stream is as of yet unnamed, but it's going to be a Rare-a-thon, and I have not yet chosen the charity, but you can rest assured it'll probably be an LGBT cause.
Well, that's really exciting. Is there anything else you'd like to readdress or expand on that we've talked about today?
Nope.
Nope.
I think we're good there.
Okay. Any shout outs you'd like to make?
Well, of course, huge shout out to everyone in the LB Army and the Escasuals all across the country and all across the world. Huge shout out to my co-hosts at Limit Break Radio who allow me to do whatever it is that I claim to do. And a huge shout out to anyone out there who is dealing with one of these causes or issues. Like, if you're out there and you're listening to this, I want you to know that, like, I know how lonely it feels. I know how you feel like you're the only one, even when you're listening to other people tell you that you're not the only one and they're going through it too. Like, you still feel like it's just you, or somehow like the rules apply differently to you, like how it's going to be somehow worse for you than it is for everyone else. I promise you, it is not. Find the help that you need. If you are having any kind of dark thoughts or anything like that, please see a therapist. And if he sucks, see another one. Because trust me, a lot of them do suck. But if
you know what, just book 2 sessions with 2 different people ahead. It's like, do you have that, like when you're out drinking, right? You got to make sure that the first drink is something really shitty because the second drink is always better, right?
Absolutely, every time.
Therapists are the same.
Yeah, you got it. It just. Even what I recommend is if you go on to Google, you can just type like LGBT therapist, or there's a website, just therapist.com, where it'll have a drop-down menu that you can see, like you can specify what that you want your therapist to specialize in, and you can put your zip code in, and they'll give you suggestions. That's how I found two therapists that I've seen. They've both been outstanding. Find the help. If you need to talk to me, I don't care. Come find me and I'll talk to you. I'm not hard to reach. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Skype. I'm all over the place. Just realize that you're not.
Use your resources.
I named my second charity stream "You're Not Alone" for a reason, because you're not. I promise you that. So go out there and find the help that you need.
Fantastic. So you can catch Eskalia on Limit Break Radio every week. Check out twitch.tv/limitbreakradio, youtube.com/limitbreakradio. Final Encounter Cast is another great show produced by the LBR crew that you can find on their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/finalencountercast. And it's pretty easy to find on YouTube. Also check out limitbreakradio.com and finalencountercast.com for updates and RSS feed. Follow Eskalia on Twitter @Eskalia. And what's your current stream schedule? When do the Escaduals unite?
The Escaduals, God, it's all over the place. Usually when I'm streaming it right now, I'm streaming FF11 with Nika a lot.
Okay.
I do have a big stream planned for next week. We're doing the next edition of How Have You Never Played, which is a new Twitch stream series that I've been doing, where I play the games that I probably should have already played at some point in my life, because everyone has those games, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, hey, have you never played that? Like I did, the last one I did was Shadow of the Colossus, which I had never played before.
And that's so satisfying to watch people like play those classic games and like experience them for the first time. That's such a rewarding feel. You guys should definitely check that out. That will be a lot of fun.
Next week is Silent Hill 2.
Ooh. And that's on twitch.tv/radio.
That'll be on Final Encountercast.
That'll be twitch.tv/Final Encountercast. All right. So go follow Final Encountercast. Check out the stream schedule. I assume there's going to be links to it and stuff like that.
Yep.
Eskalia, Cully Page, Ryumasa, everybody. For those of you listening at home, thank you for joining us. You can check the description below for other places that you can listen to the show in future. We're currently going through that weird process of being approved by iTunes. I'm sure you know what that's like, Eskalia.
Oh yes.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Yes.
If you have any questions or thoughts about the show, please do leave a comment below. And if you have or know anyone who might have a compelling story worth sharing on the show, you can reach me via ethysffxiv@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss the next episode. But until then, I'm your host, Ethys, and this is The Lucid Grind.